Micah. Thank you for
Hello.
coming over to my little 1-year anniversary.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I just had Steve over.
Wonderful.
Yes, and he wants to join the Moby Dick party.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely.
So we will have a threesome on BookTube, I think.
There we go. That should be happening fairly soon, I think.
Yeah.
I think we're getting close.
Yeah, we're nearly done. Huh? We're like 75% in.
Mm-hmm.
Something. Yeah. And how do you like the book so far?
I'm loving it. It has been incredible. It's one of the books that has been on sort of a list of books I want to read at some point. Not my urgent TBR, but sort of in the back of my mind. And for some reason, I had convinced myself that it wasn't really going to be that big of an impactful read. That it was going to be kind of old, kind of stuffy. It's something to check off of a list, but it has been the opposite in every way, in the best way. It has been an incredibly engaging read. I have been completely taken by it, completely absorbed by it, and quickly it's become one of my favorite American classics. And I see why it's earned the title Best American Classic, best work of 20th century English writing, or American writing, sorry.
19th century.
Oh, that's right, 19th century.
1851.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And I enjoy the blend of sort of our main story mixed in with basically the nonfiction essays talking about the whaling industry.
Love those.
Yeah, it's sort of talking about life in Nantucket, life in New Bedford. The way that these men lived their lives is incredible. 5 years on a ship,
can you imagine?
Just sailing around the world. You have a family back home. You might see them a couple times in your lifetime because you're gone.
Yeah.
Forever. And you're not really even necessarily seeing the world because you're not docking anywhere. You're in the open waters
all the time.
Unless another whale ship comes by
to give you the post, and then you receive post, and the guy, he passed away.
Right, because this letter is from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And the only chance you have of seeing another human, not a crew member, is if there's another ship that comes by.
Yeah.
You might see them for 5 minutes. And it's even more extreme than any other form of maritime life.
Yeah.
Basically, you're living on the open waters. It's
a bit like the people who are living on the spaceship ISS.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, completely removed from any form of society, really creating their own way of life. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. You read now a lot of. You're very much a topical reader, no? You read everything of Queen Elizabeth, the first, the presidents of the United States. Now whaling, everything around whaling.
I enjoy really diving in. I enjoy picking a topic and reading as much about it. And particularly with reading about whales and reading about whaling nonfiction books alongside Moby Dick has been a really interesting experience. Sort of getting the modern science put in with sort of the antiquated science. Because a lot of what Melville writes is out of date now, or obviously we know more about treating animals humanely, and we're not, we don't have major corporations harpooning whales anymore. Obviously, to some extent.
Oh yeah, we do.
Some countries still do, but not
I believe 3 countries.
I know Japan's one of them.
Yeah, Norway and Iceland, I think.
Okay, but it's much better than it ever has been. So some of the science around, whales' brains and sensing pain and things like that have changed over decades. But it's very interesting to sort of immerse yourself completely in a topic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also do the Russian Empire that you also love very much, and the classics, but also the Russian classics you like, no?
I do, yes. I haven't read as many this year as I did last year, but last year was almost completely comprised of Russian classics for me. And I'm slowly getting back into that this year. Of course, in December we have Anna Karenina with Classics&Company, so that's a big one to check off my list. I mean, because that's one of the towering works of the Russian canon, and one that I have not read yet.
That's the only one on the whole list that I've read.
Oh, really?
A very long time ago. Yeah, that's
wonderful.
The only one.
That's fantastic. I'm excited. I'm excited to read that one in a group setting.
Yeah.
Just for anything of that length, and obviously anything Tolstoyan requires. I think it's good to read with other people, because it opens up a lot of narratives that you may not stumble upon yourself, just because the scale and the scope of his novels are immense.
And there are a lot of people with different cultural backgrounds, and their opinion bring an enormous richness to the whole experience, I think. So that's fun, and you learn so much from everybody. Yeah, it's such a great experience.
That's something that I never experienced before I had a channel. No. Reading with other people was something I never even thought you did. No. I always viewed reading as an incredibly solitary act of you and the book and talking with the author. But reading with the group, reading with another person, even just buddy reads, just with two people. Us reading Moby Dick has been. I may not have read it if I hadn't read it as a part of a read with you. Just because I have continuously put it off for 5 years at this point. I probably would have continued to put it off forever.
It's true. And sometimes it helps you to push through the more difficult passages, and where you normally would have DNF'd it.
Absolutely.
Where you say, well, this book is not for me, but because you're reading with two, you push yourself a little bit further, and then you realize, oh, thank God I didn't stop it early.
You get past the point. You get past the point where you do get engaged with the book, which for me is usually, with Moby Dick, it took me maybe only the first maybe 20 or 30 pages, and I was in. There are other books that I've had to stay in for 100 pages until I acclimated to them, and then I loved them. But if you don't have that push, you may not stay with them all the time.
You have been on BookTube just 1 or 2 months longer than I have, I believe.
Yes.
Well, what is your best experience?
My best experience. I've had so many. I think my best experience has just been the overall discovery of the BookTube community, of feeling that you're not creating videos in a vacuum, or you're not posting videos to avoid, because that was one of my first, I don't want to say fears, but maybe trepidations with starting a channel was, well, I'm going to be posting all of these videos and no one's going to watch them. And they'll just be out on the internet and they'll be there alone. And it's so much more of, every time you post, you have these names, you have these faces of the people you're posting to. And so I think the best experience has been the feeling that I know there are people out there excited to watch the video that I am filming, or that I'm about. You have
1,600 followers now?
I do. It's I believe it's just past 1,600.
Yeah, that's a big concert hall already.
It is. I think about that. I think about that scope. I think a lot of times numbers can be dwarfed when you see a lot of the channels outside of just our small area of BookTube, where there are hundreds of thousands or millions. And when you sort of bring back into a scope, like you said, a concert hall, my channel, if everyone in my channel went to a space, that's an immense amount of people. And it's both an incredible honor.
You wouldn't even dare to talk to them on stage.
No. That's the other thing, is sort of, it masks what you're actually doing. If you told me all right, you're going to sit in front of a room and you're going to talk about what you've read this week, and there are 1,600 people staring at you. There's no way I would be doing that. So it sort of puts that filter on it of sort of diluting yourself into saying, I'm just talking to my phone. I'm not talking to anyone. And then you put it out and you realize, you know, how many people have access to it. And of course, you know, everyone else outside of my subscriber count has access to it. But it's a pretty great feeling when you lock into a community, which I think you felt as well. And it brings another level of joy to the filming process.
Yeah. And do you have any plans for the next year, the coming year?
I think for your channel? So I've pulled off of having too many sort of very specific plans, just because I know I want to leave room for life to happen and for some spontaneity with opportunities arise. A couple of things that I do want to do is I want to start doing a lot more. I don't want to say reviews necessarily of books, but I want to do a lot more of talking in depth about particular books that I love, particular
deep
authors,
dives.
Historical event, deep dives, exactly, historical events. I would love to talk more in detail about Catherine the Great, Queen Victoria,
Russian Revolution,
the Romanovs. Absolutely, yeah, exactly, and do something around sort of building, not necessarily in an educational sense necessarily, but to educate people, and sort of to present academic topics or more highbrow topics, but in a very accessible, non-snooty way for everyone to be able to learn. That's one thing that I have found. Anytime I find a channel that has a creator who talks about something academic or something that's sort of a very specific topic, but does it in an accessible way, it's always a fantastic feeling.
Experience,
a feeling of like this is a very complex topic that's being talked about in a very casual way that feels accessible and doesn't feel like I need to go get a bunch of fancy degrees to be able to talk about. And so I would love to be able to create that sort of a space where I can deliver information that is accurate and is well presented, but is done so in a very accessible way that doesn't intimidate or doesn't make people feel like they're unable to read the same books that I'm reading or to discuss the same topics, because everyone is.
What I've never seen with you is genre fiction. Do you rarely read genre fiction like horror or thrillers?
I have read a little bit in the past, and that comes into another plan that I have for this year, is wanting to branch out into a little bit more genre fiction. So I'm hoping to participate in a couple more genre fiction based reading events in this next year, because I really have not read much genre fiction at all. I've read a couple novels that might be considered thriller, read a couple that might be considered just sort of literary fiction, things like that. But as far as sort of mainstream genre fiction, I really haven't delved into that at all. But I want to.
And it's fun, well, because we work together a lot. We do buddy reads and we have Classics&Company.
Yes.
And you read Shogun, for instance, together with Steve. And do you like those kind of collaborations?
I do. I really enjoy them. One of my favorite things about them is that it brings new books to my attention that I typically wouldn't read. For instance, Shogun. I most likely wouldn't have read this, at least not now. But because I'm reading it with Steve and I'm really enjoying it as well, it opens up my horizons. Or reading Moby Dick with you, or any time there's a group read or a buddy read. I love it for finding new books, and then also sort of the deepening the connection with your fellow reader, because it's definitely a shared experience, but a very personal experience to each of the people involved.
Yeah, indeed.
So it's sort of this interesting activity, because reading is such a solitary thing, and it's very impactful and personal, a deeply personal activity. So then when you do it with someone else, you're sort of putting yourself in a place to share those personal introspective revelations and thoughts that you had on a book with someone else, which then sort of, deepens friendships between people because you're sharing more, your personal feelings of something that's very private, which I think is a fantastic experience.
That's true. It's a wonderful experience. It has brought me so many new insights in literature and history, and also because we don't tend to read many people of color, and so you force yourself. Well, you in a way you open yourself more to literature from other countries, other continents, other. It's a way more rich experience than before for me reading. So it's fun, and it makes it a cool hobby.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. It adds another level. It adds the social component, or just sort of, like you said, widening your own reading preferences, a title you may not have found before, an author you may not have found before, and then other thoughts as well, other experiences, other insights into a book. That's I think what's one of the biggest benefits of BookTube is sort of having so many creators from so many different walks of life, different cultures, different social backgrounds, reading the same books, different books, and talking. Just anytime there's an open dialogue, it's a positive thing. Anytime someone feels completely comfortable to say their opinion in a respectful way, obviously, it's a great thing, because it opens so many possibilities in conversation.
Yeah, because everybody reads the same book but has a different experience, no?
Right, absolutely. It's you bring all of the past experiences of your life every time you read a book.
Yeah.
And no one shares the exact same sort of fabric of life narrative. And so you can read the same book, and it's almost like reading two separate books, even though it's the same text, same story, but from two different perceptions. And just like everything in life, no two people see something the same way. Even if you're both looking, you can both look at the same object, and you'll see slightly different things. That's being human. That's being a self. And so I think with books, especially literature, especially, you bring so much more to the table when you do it with someone else. Yeah,
that's true. So thank you, Micah, for joining my little party.
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. And I hope we can do a whole lot more reading together, and I really enjoyed the experience. I told Steve that you were a crybaby, but hey.
Can't let my secrets out. Exposing me.
There's one book, wait 1 second, that I want to bring to your attention. It's also about whaling. And it's just out. It's fairly new. It's called Rush O. So Rush O with an exclamation mark, and it's written by Shirley Barret.
Okay. Shirley Barret, Rush O.
Yeah.
We'll have to find a copy of that. You said it's recently out.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah.
I'll grab a copy of that.
Yeah.
Add it to my month of reading about whales.
So thank you, Micah, and
You're welcome. Thank you
later.
So much.
Bye-bye. Bye. Hello everybody, welcome back. And now we have another wonderful interview with Micah Cummins, our young poster boy, and I hope you like this one too.